In our movies, in our storybooks, in our legends, and in our religious texts. And before that, in our oral traditions, are the ones we might embody to a great extent, or in the many and small forms. We might catch a glimpse of them. It helps to know them when we live our lives and tell our stories. They're always there. Some are lurking in the shadows, and others in plain sight. What am I talking about? The archetypes. We get into them in the Real Storyteller Lab. And as I'm building that section out a bit for when we open the lab the next time, I wanted to talk a bit more about it here. There's such a great way to get into and to build character, of course. So in this video, I wanted to get into the fabric behind these characters, some of the main threads, if you will, and ways that I've experienced working with these archetypes as a way to reach greater depth within ourselves and those we're wanting to reach. It's a topic of immense power and a great joy for me to rediscover. So I imagine it will be a big topic of conversation here on a number of occasions. It's a topic which can make or break our progress or work of art. I've not been working so consistently with archetypes before, but I find it so absolutely fascinating that I'm going to probably talk a lot more about it here. I'm looking out at the storm outside my window right now. It's quite something. So, I'm sure you know some of the examples of some of the most common stereotypes or archetypes. Um, they're ancient archetypes that also have sort of more modern derivatives or names. For example, the magician, the ruler, or otherwise maybe called the sovereign, or the king or the queen, um, the lover, and the page, or the innocent. So where does it all come from? Well, rites and passages of our human history, I would say. And in The Power of Myth, um, the book that's really a transcript of the epic conversations that took place when Billmoyers interviewed Joseph Campbell in the mid-80s. I'm told it was 24 hours of filming that were then cut into a 6-hour PBS series. And I'm sure that these 24 hours were all fantastic conversation. And it would have been worth watching the whole thing if it was possible. And I was given this book by a friend in the US in the early 90s. And since I have recently been reunited with some of my beloved books after traveling and living all over the world, I'm so happy to be reunited and able to share a few passages. I've not found my friend again, but I'm very glad for the books. And so in this chapter called The First Storytellers, I have picked out something that I thought was really interesting to explain a little bit about this. And Moyers asks, what do our souls owe to ancient myth? Well, said Campbell, the ancient myths were designed to harmonize the mind and the body. The mind can ramble off in strange ways and want things that the body does not want. The myths and rites were means of putting the mind in accord with the body, and the way of life in accord with the way that nature dictates. And then Moyers asks, so these old stories live in us? Campbell said, they do indeed. The stages of human development are the same today as they were in ancient times. And then he goes on and on, but that's for another day. And so this collective ancient repository of stories also is where we find the patterns and structure for our stories. You know, for example, the hero's journey that so many stories are built around. The character of that story, the hero, of course, is a main archetype as well. And so often the archetypes are stages in life, like the page that then becomes maybe the warrior and then the sage. And epic writers and filmmakers, of course, know these characters very intimately. And many philosophers, psychologists, and healers interact skillfully with them as well, sometimes to bring about great change. By connecting to these archetypes within us, we can become part of a much greater whole, something bigger than our small cells. And it can be great fun, of course. And in another book that was sitting in my boxes in a basement here in Sweden, waiting for me to come home. Actually, I think this one also traveled with me back to South Africa and then back to Sweden again. It's this book called Synchrodestiny by Deepak Chopra. And he writes, the process of finding an archetype should be joyous. Don't worry about choosing unwisely, because archetypes spring from the collective consciousness. Every archetype is present in every one of us. But as alluded to earlier, I mean, some archetypes might be more present in us than others, perhaps depending on the stage of life or our gender or something else. But you may find 1, 2, or 3 that inspires you more. What's really neat about this is that they might also work really well together. And that's something I got a taste of in a recent online event with Tony Robbins. He let us try an exercise that I think he's helped stalled high-performing athletes and politicians at crossroads before. I think he was talking about Clinton, but I'm not entirely sure. And I'm not sure what he calls it either, this process, but he helped us get into various states and to find some of these archetypes within us to get some advice on a situation. And also to get those parts to support each other so that we all could move forward together. And it was truly fascinating and really, really helpful. If you'd like to tap into archetypes a bit more, you probably want to hang around my channel a bit longer and subscribe. I'm also going to put a link to the waitlist for my Storyteller Lab below. Archetypes will be a part of what we do there going forward. One thing that's quite unique about my Storyteller Lab, I think, is that I help participants get at their story, develop their materials, and the way they reach their audience by sort of leading them into using their imagination through visualization, to find or sense their visuals, the context or the landscape and the colors that are really going to work to tell their story so that they can attract the audience that's good for their stuff. So if you're a digital course creator or a coach, this might be useful for you. So I hope you check it out, and I'll see you soon.